Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a rude Karen assaulted a disabled veteran on a bus. She rages at him for sitting in a priority seat and demands he give her his seat. She claims he is fake disabled and then spits on him. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the stories. So I was riding the bus with my grandpa one day when we experienced the worst person that I've ever come across. My grandpa is a disabled veteran and sits in a wheelchair most of the time. He is not paralyzed and does have a cane he can use to take a few steps, but it is hard for him, hence the wheelchair. I don't know about other countries, but here in Finland our local buses are all accessible for disabled people. The layout is that in the front there are spaces where people sitting in wheelchairs can go and the wheelchair gets strapped in for secure purposes. Next are seats that are labeled for other disabled people and also elderly. I will say when the bus is not busy, it is common to see non-disabled people using the seats, but the general rule is if somebody gets on and needs it, you give it up. I hope that helps clear things up for the rest of this story. The bus was pretty full, so while Grandpa was getting situated in the front, I went and looked for a seat a little further back. A few stops later and the bus pretty much did not have any seats left and it was just standing room. That was when the evil witch of a woman walked on the bus and got upset that there were no available seats. Her eyes locked on my grandpa as a target, and I'm guessing since he had a cane she assumed that he was well enough to stand. I did not hear the start of the conversation, but the bus got quiet pretty fast and I was able to hear her talking to my grandpa. Karen, I said that I'm exhausted and need to sit down. You have a cane, so you can just stand up and give me your wheelchair. I don't care how tired you are. I cannot get up out of my chair and give it to you. Now, I was watching but did not get involved because despite his age, I know my grandpa can handle his own. The bus had also stopped moving at this point because the driver was not gonna resume driving with a fight going on. Karen, do you have any idea the kind of crap I go through? I deserve that seat. Grandpa, try fighting in the military and then get back to me on what's hard or not. You should show some respect to people. Karen, I'm sure you just claim to be a veteran to get free things. Hell, I bet you can walk fine, but pull this whole wheelchair stunt so that people feel sorry for you. It took another couple of minutes of Karen yelling at my grandpa for the driver to tell her to be quiet and stop causing a problem on the bus. Instead of stopping, she decided to make things worse. She unhooked one of the buckles, pulled my grandpa out of the wheelchair and threw him onto the floor on the bus. Then she actually had the nerve to spit on him. Both me and the bus driver jumped up and I ran over with him concerned and me furious. I was ready to dig into Karen with every insult in my arsenal. Seeing Grandpa on the ground though made me realize my priority should be him. He was using his cane to get himself up and I tried to help him. I could see he was in pain doing it and it just made me even angrier. However, once he was fully standing up though, he took his cane and slapped it right into Karen's face. He did not have the strength he used to, so he sadly did not break her nose or anything. However, she was screaming bloody murder how she was being assaulted and did not see any irony from it whatsoever. Keep in mind, the bus still had not moved and now at this point could not until police got involved. Other passengers were asked to just leave the bus and the next one that stopped would let them on. When the police came on the bus, they were trying to get Karen to stop screaming and tell them what happened. Of course, she did not say anything close to the truth of what happened. Karen, I was just minding my own business sitting in my seat when this crazy man came after me. He used his cane as a weapon and hit me in the face with it. I was scared that he was gonna try and kill me. Me? That's not true. That's my grandpa's chair and she pulled him out of it before pushing him to the ground. Karen, stay out of this, you little brat. I want this man arrested immediately. The policeman turned to speak to the bus driver who seemed very stunned. I don't think he ever had something like this happen on the bus when he was driving. Policeman, sir, do you have the bus footage available? Driver, yes sir. I can pull that up for you in just a second. Karen, bus footage? What Karen did not know is that all the buses here come equipped with cameras and suddenly knowing that she was going to get caught out, she decided to try and change her tune. Karen, I mean, that is not really needed. I don't think I actually want to press charges against him anymore. Policeman, that doesn't matter. We still have to check the footage to see what happened. And it turns out though, anytime police are called onto a bus for an issue, they have to check the cameras. It doesn't matter the situation, so they see what Karen did to my grandpa and there was no way for her to talk her way out of that one. She got caught lying to the police, which is not a way to get them to want to do you any favors. They asked my grandpa if he wanted to press charges and he said yes, so Karen got taken away in handcuffs. She was complaining that she was also assaulted and wanted the police to do something about it. The police gave my grandpa a stern warning and chatted about what unit he served in since the officer had family served before. I know they probably could have arrested my grandpa for hitting her with a cane, so I am very thankful he just got a warning. Karen might still try and personally come after him for it, but it has been months and so far we have not heard anything. We got to where we were going about 45 minutes late, but the ride home was much easier. I think I forgot to mention earlier that we were going to the movies, so we missed the time we wanted and instead saw the next showing. It gave us time to make sure that he was okay and get some ice cream to calm down after the whole thing. I cannot believe that somebody could be so rude to not just demand my grandpa's wheelchair seat, but to also push him down and spit on him. I hope I don't come across anybody like that again, but no, if grandpa does, they might end up getting hit with a cane as well. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is exactly why, if you are an entitled person, you should not mess with disabled people and especially old badass grandpas. I would say that Karen got exactly what she deserved. Let me know in the comments what you think about the story here. Anyway, the next one is titled, Karen Wants Everything for Free. So I work IT for a big company. Thankfully, the IT is not going to be very relevant to the story. I work every day from 9 to 5 and I don't tend to be very involved with my coworkers. The last few weeks, my supervisor, who has a daughter in the Girl Scouts, has been trying to sell Girl Scout cookies at work. Cool, I'm not interested, but not a big deal. She's had order sheets everywhere in the office, advertised a few times, whatever, that's fine. Today was delivery day and she came in with boxes and boxes of cookies to deliver and then collect cash. Of course, today is the day that the CB decides to spend an entire half hour at my supervisor's desk talking loudly in a shrill voice. Oh wow, you have a lot of cookies. Can I eat some? Naturally, my supervisor explains that she is selling her daughter's Girl Scout cookies and they are already pre-ordered and she only has the amount that people ordered before. All this flies straight through the beggar's ears as she repeats, "But you have so many cookies, just let me eat one." Now at this point I get annoyed by the chatter, so I turn my music up and get back to work. Unfortunately, that piece did not even last a single song before the high-pitched train whistle of her voice screams through the office. "It's not fair, you have so many cookies, and you won't even let me eat one." Bless my supervisor for being able to keep her calm, just telling the beggar that it wouldn't then be fair for the people who pre-ordered cookies for them to not get their cookies. This exchange continued for a few more tries before the beggar stomped away without any cookies. As she leaves, I just hear my supervisor sigh and mutter under her breath, "Jesus Christ, Karen, how do you not understand the idea of a sale? You literally work in the marketing and sales department." And the next one is titled, Petty Parking Revenge. I did not do the petty revenge, but I was the official witness to what happened. Back when I was in college, I had a job as the night receptionist/security for the dorm I lived in. It was an easy job, I just had to check the IDs of folks coming in to ensure they were residents or have them call a resident to have them escorted to their room. I also walked the floors and parking lot every hour. In the parking lot was the usual motley assortment of student cars. The back row was filled with fancy cars, all parked at an angle crossing two spots, obviously the rich jerks' cars. I had noted the illegal parking many times in my log, told the campus cops when they looped through. Campus cop told me not to bother as the chief would just throw the tickets away because the parents would call and raise hell that their babies had to park that way to protect their cars. Most evenings, the night owls, late-night study folks, the all-nighters, etc. would hang out in the lobby anywhere from 3 to 12 or more on exam weeks. I trusted a couple of folks to cover the desk while I did my rounds, and one night I've just settled down after a set of rounds. Pizza place had delivered my sub and 6-pack of Coke to get me through the long dull middle of my shift. Things are settling down. Folks are starting to head for bed, so it's around 2:30 AM. When we hear bang 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 from the lot, I and the remaining late night folks go out to see what is going on. Every single fancy car had been hit, the exposed fender having been bashed in. Someone said they saw an unknown junker hitting every one of them, backing up, hitting the car, next car, etc. and then taking off. More folks come pouring out of the door to see what had happened, including the rich jerks who of course were yelling about the damage to their precious cars, yelling at me to call the campus cops. I was already starting back to the lobby to call the cops anyway. With them yelling at me, I just took my own sweet time. A cop shows up, takes pictures of the damage and how the cars are parked, then starts writing tickets for illegal parking. Which of course set off the rich jerks again. Fully documenting the damage includes documenting the illegal parking, which means I must issue tickets. Between the photos of illegal parking sent to the insurance companies and the tickets, none of the insurance companies paid out. Or so the rich jerks claimed for months afterwards. From that day forward, no one parked at a slant, taking up 2 spaces, and roughly half of the rich jerks' cars were never seen in the lot again. And the next one is titled, Karen in my building. This just happened maybe 5 minutes ago and I think it is hilarious. I'm the facility manager for my building. Everything that happens and goes wrong is my responsibility, so I make sure everything runs smoothly. My boss had made it clear it is my building and I was hired to not only keep people in line but run everything. I'm not a dick, but I hold people accountable, forcibly but politely. There was no facility manager for a long time before I came along and both clients and employees ran amok with no order. In the 4 months I've been here, my boss has praised my performance and has gone to bat for me countless times. She is the best boss I've ever had. I've got a firm but fair approach and my reputation reflects that. I've got a Karen in the building and trust me, the name stereotype applies. Who is just a counselor for family services has nothing to do with our group. She likes to complain about everything and gives my boss a headache almost daily. She shares an office with another woman who's unfortunately picking up on her Karen tendencies, aka a Karen in training. I have been doing a keycard audit all week and I knew to leave Karen's keycard alone because she's the only Karen in the building, so her name stands out. I am missing 75 keycards, lots of former employees having all door access dating all the way back to 2015. I cannot have that, so I deleted a lot of them, especially if it had a wacky name or just a room number. However, I did delete Kit's card information because it was not under her name. She just came to tell me her keycard was not working and Karen happened to be passing by and overheard it. I went and fixed Kit's keycard and we went to go check to see if it worked or not. We found Karen's outside the office waiting, complaining to my boss that her keycard did not work either. Karen wandered away and my boss rolled her eyes and I smiled and I told her I would take care of it. After checking to make sure KIT's keycard worked, I went downstairs to check the system, looked up Karen and wouldn't you know it, her keycard was completely fine. In fact, it showed she had a master keycard, so I changed all of her permissions and limited her back to just her room only. I then went upstairs and got my boss's attention because her office is next door to the ladies and I mouthed listen and pointed. I opened their door and was all, "Hey Karen! I went and checked your keycard in the system, everything is good to go." In fact, it said you had a master key to the building and per the company order, since you're not a contractor or a company employee, I cannot give you that access. So I had to revoke your status to just this room only. Can't have you bugging people on official business. Wink, thanks for bringing your keycard to my attention. She started to object that she needed the master keycard because XYZ and I was all, yeah, sorry. Maybe before, but I'm the facility manager and you don't need access to everything except this office, and if you do, it's outside your pay grade, so you'll have to come get me, okay? Cool, thanks, bye, and then just closed the door on her mid-sentence. My boss was quietly laughing her ass off in her office and gave me an air high five. Added to be clear, I'm not talking down about my coworkers. They are fantastic people and no, I'm not a suck-up. They work in education and bend over backwards to help students and customers get the information and help they needed. The building mostly got shut down and neglected and customers got lazy due to coronavirus. We offer free classrooms to those who need it, including a computer lab by a reservation first come first served basis. The problems we ran into was that the previous FM passed away suddenly and the replacement was temporary, coupled with the C word, and this was our problem. My co-workers were not able to enforce rules and regulations and rooms were left destroyed and neglected, keys stolen, etc. Since my arrival, I have enforced the rules and allowed the staff to resume their normal duties without having to clean up after and babysit customers. Karen is not staff, she is just renting an office. She definitely has no business having access to our materials, supplies or workspaces, especially when they are handling students' private information. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, I just cannot imagine working tech support or anything like that, because explaining this kind of stuff to people like Karen is definitely a task made from hell. I probably could not even stand one day of doing that. And the next one is titled, Boss Fired Me, I Turned Her Career Upside Down. Many years ago, I accepted a job in an industry I was trying to break into for many years before. This was my first professional job and I was still pretty naive on the business dynamics, meaning I did not play the way they wanted me to. For many of the people I worked with, this was fine. My boss, Nina, was something else. I learned pretty quickly to just go with the flow and remain under her radar. This worked for a time before I could not handle it anymore, and I will get to that shortly. Nina prided herself on getting things handled when nobody else can. This was likely because of how relentless she was. She believed she was friends with everybody, but I think most people were doing exactly like I was trying to keep her happy, just so she didn't get worse. One such event was the placement of a new temporary, only in the fact that the company didn't want to build a new structure, building. There were many questions raised about the legality of the placement, but Nina worked her magic and the building was placed right where she wanted it. This was ideal for her since she could pick the office with the best view. Keep in mind that this trailer was maybe 2 steps above a festival porta potty. The way she spoke about it, you would think she was describing the Sistine Chapel. As time went on, I learned why this placement was so important to her. Her husband's company was contracted to perform the work. Ethics be damned, this didn't sit well with me, and I started noticing a trend in her contractors' preferences. It always leaned towards those that used her husband's company. I tried to address this with her personally, which would only result in her using her experience to teach me that there are many aspects I don't understand for selecting contractors. I tried to bring this to the attention of people that could do something about it, but they all seemed to fear her as well. This facility has a lot of safety rules and for good reason, with the number of hazards around. However, people had a habit of assuming a rule for a specific location of the facility applied to the entire facility. One rule being facial hair. Specific areas required respirators, so facial hair was not allowed. I didn't work in any of those areas, nor anywhere remotely close to them. I still shaved regularly, but I wanted a bit of growth for my wedding. Months prior, I asked Nina if it was okay to grow it out for a month prior, and she agreed. We discussed it every 1 to 2 weeks until that month prior. The first Monday I showed up with a week's worth of growth, she lost her mind and began screaming at me. I stood up for myself without getting angry, and she continued to scream at me. Eventually, I relented and tried to defuse the situation. While I was able to get the safety department to approve my beard, I still received a message that I was youthfully defiant from my boss. From that point forward, all conversations were strictly professional from me, little to no emotion, to the point, nothing personal. For the following months, Nina became much more critical of my work. Directions she sent me in email and either matched or exceeded her requirements were immediately rejected, and I had to recreate them with a new set of requirements. Literally, math became a point of contention, nothing complex either. Basic arithmetic was scrutinized to the point that I had to explain, and this is not a joke, 8 + 1 = 9. My days were obviously outnumbered. Earlier this year, I was rushed to the hospital for a possible heart attack. I am early 30s by the way. Ultimately, it was determined to be because of major work stress and my diet, since I was forbidden from lunch in the end. After a few days in the hospital, my wife is given notification that I am being fired. To this day, I've not been given a reason for being fired. The problem for my now former boss is that I have plenty of free time now. The first part started when coworkers began reaching out to see how my health was, and I would subtly mention being fired. If they asked, I would give as much detail without seeming malicious. This information started spreading quickly and people began to put their walls around Nina. Evidently, I had built a decent relationship with my peers. My next step was to call the corporate ethics hotline and leave an anonymous message about her blatant conflicts of interest with applicable project names and rough dates, making also sure to mention her husband and his company by name. The first sign that this call was effective came 2 weeks later when I learned that her Sistine Chapel had been condemned for being placed on a fault line and had to be vacated immediately. She was forced into a basement office with 2 other people. The good news for her is that she doesn't have to spend much time in that new office though. She is spending more than 50% of her time in a remote location in Alaska that requires at minimum 2 days of travel one way. Additionally, she has been denied a replacement for me. This means she must perform all duties I did on top of her normal tasks, not a great deal when you are salaried. In the end, she has alienated herself and is receiving no support. She travels mostly on her own time and spends more time in an airport working than in her office. Meanwhile, I have accepted a great job that has significantly reduced my blood pressure. Her last 5 years before retirement are going to be rough. I didn't do much, but isn't the best revenge to live your best life? And of course, ripe stars, since we have read a few previous stories that pretty much came to the same conclusion, I would definitely agree with that. Some of the best revenges you can have is a life well lived.